Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the game room. So, if you have been living under a rock, obviously, as the day of posting this video, the last 2 weeks have been fairly insane. So, I wanted to do something unscripted, chill, relax, give you guys some entertainment and escapism, and in full transparency, add in that in the last month and a half, 2 months, I really haven't been variant hunting. There's really only so many empty searches, same auction searches, people trying to sell a $30 game for 500 and that same $30 game for 8 grand because it's in a plastic case that you can take before you really get, crazy. I figured the first video of the year would be something more relaxed, more goofy, if you will. And I wanted to step away from the PlayStation variants for a second and talk about what is probably one of my favorite subset variants, and that is from strategy guides. Now, on the website, I pretty much just only have a gallery right now, tracking them as I get them in and so forth. But a particular guidebook caught my attention, and after flipping through it, I realized I had to have the whole set as quickly as possible just because of how cool it was. And in using archive.org to go back to Prima's website, I believe I have the full set now, so hence why we're making this video. And just like the thumbnail promised, today we're going to be talking about Prima's big PlayStation book. Now, what is the big PlayStation book? To give you an idea, as a sort of appetizer, if you will, back in the day, 20 years ago, you had your normal video game magazines and you had your normal strategy guides. Magazines like Tips and Tricks and EGM2 were more focused on the programmer's cheats and the strategy guides and the playing tips and so forth, not so much the reviews. With the big PlayStation book, it's going after that crowd, but instead of on a monthly basis, on a yearly one. So with their first book, they have over 100 games in their first book. And as I mentioned, let's get a good example here. Like for this basketball game, they actually have strategies for playing the teams. They have a full review in the bottom. And what's really nice is in the writing, about 13 to 14 different people collaborated to make this book. It's written in a goofy, fun way. It almost like they're sitting next to you on the couch playing the game with you. Like if the game they're covering at that particular moment is a terrible game, they will mock it and they will make fun of it and they'll, poke at it and so forth. They keep razzing on Street Fighter the arcade, or Street Fighter the movie, the arcade game, which is hilarious. Of note, before we get into some of the more geeky graphic designer stuff, both this launch era book and the next books feature two oddities. And the first oddity is it features Bubble Bobble. Not the Bubble Bobble collection, just Bubble Bobble, which is weird. And two, it has a European game called Little Big Adventure, which was never released in America. So this was clearly intended to be multi-region because it's got the different prices, but I don't know if they intended to leave in an exclusive game like that, but we'll get to more on that in the next book. So as far as some of the cool graphic designer geek dive stuff I wanted to show you is one, you can tell this started in 1997, which is the first book is 1997, just from the trendy, hey, we're just going to take a random texture and apply it to whatever we're working on. Doesn't matter. If you guys ever want a good laugh, even if you don't own the systems, go YouTube the games, look up games on the Jaguar, on the 3DO, very early PlayStation, very early Saturn, and you will just see this ridiculous, almost what's the word I'm looking for here? Fetish is too strong a word, but almost this weird fetish of having to use textures in everything. Games on the 3DO and the Jaguar, their title screens are just textures everywhere, even in the font, and it just got ridiculous. The other important aspect as far as graphic designer goes for this particular book is that in this and the next one, they use this standard paper type. And as you can see, it provides really nice contrast, dark blacks. Obviously, the paper is white as it can be. Really nice grayscales. It's super easy to read everything. And as time went on and they added more games, they would make a horrible, horrible decision. And we'll get to that when we get there. Now, this was the 1997 edition. When we get to 1998, or as it's called, Volume 2, This is where the second European exclusive game keeps coming in, and that is Formula Kart Special Edition. With the second book, they did something really cool. I mean, it looks so tacky now just because I did the exact same thing when Game-Rave was a fanzine just at the top of the page, not the side of it. But on the side, they actually made the title of the game the actual edge of the page. So when you were going to flip through the book, you could see the name of the game right away without having to look at the table of contents. So I thought that was kind of cool. Same paper type. What is nice in the second edition, they started adding GameShark codes. So that was actually a nice touch. And it's really here where they got their groove. Now, if you're wondering, out of curiosity, how they fit over 150 games in a book, that when we compare to the original is actually smaller, despite having more games. What they did is basically any game in the first book, when they came to the second book, they stripped that game down to an absolutely one-page max. So if a game in the original book, had a 3-page review, tips, program cheats, etc., in this book, it was a very, very short, maybe 1-paragraph description of the game, and then just its cheat codes and playing tips. When they got to the 1999 edition, they got super huge because now they were over 190 games. So besides the compression of the older games, they are now starting to add in even more with a whole bunch of stuff. However, from a graphic design standpoint, this is where they made a major faux pas. What isn't a faux pas is they brought back the 90s, like everything is a computer glitch, crazy Trapper Keeper type design. I love this. This is probably my favorite texture in the entire book series just because of how absolute 90s it is. But if you can tell from the thing, you'll notice that this looks a little bit more gray. That's because this edition is actually newsprint. Newsprint is this very thin paper type that is usually used in like sketching classes if you're doing charcoal. It's just a very cheap material. It's lightweight, very, very thin paper. So when you're making a book like this, it stays light. Like despite the size of this is pretty, no biggie. This is just fine. The choice to go with the newsprint, though, would come to bite them in the ass in the next issue. And what I mean by that is, in the 2000 edition, which is even bigger, they do go with the newsprint again, but, and this is going to be really hard to see on camera, I might have to take a scan. If you look closely from the previous version, see how this one is actually a darker gray? That's not the paper, that's the age of the paper. For whatever reason, the type of newsprint they used in this, 20 years later, it is grayed really, really badly. And in trying to read some of the tips and tricks, the contrast of the thin black font with this now grayed out paper makes it really, really hard to read. Like, perfect example. Look at these GameShark codes. Like, they're barely legible. Like, it's really hard to read. And I have got glasses on and I still can't read them. Like I'm gonna have to use a camera and just zoom in on that next time I use them. So that came to bite them in the ass because what's the point of paying $20 for a guidebook if you can't read anything? This was also a similar problem in another guidebook that I don't have handy right now, where the newsprint they used, it got so dark that literally some of the screenshots and some of the GameShark codes are illegible. Like they cannot be read. So if you're terrified about your games not being preserved, your guidebooks are probably not going to last either if they're made with newsprint. On the positive side, they did learn from their newsprint mistake with a hilarious side problem, or side effect, I guess you could say. In the final edition, which I believe is the final edition of the 2001 PlayStation book. Now, this is roughly the same size as that one, except this is a bowling ball and a half. And the reason this weighs so much is because they went instead with this amazingly nice glossy white paper. Like you can see the light reflecting off it. That's how glossy it is. And what this choice in paper change did is just provide this amazingly beautiful contrasty, like look, like you could actually get different grays and all the screenshots come through which is nice. What is interesting though with this one is that for some reason, a lot of the screenshots are blurry. So I don't know if they were grabbing like images off the internet rather than doing their own. That in its native resolution would upscale horribly when you go to throw it in a print magazine. So that's the only thing I can think of that why some of the screenshots look terrible. Now, to give you an idea of how heavy this book is, this thing was packaged beautifully. It was bubble wrapped. It was in a box. From being tossed around just in the shipment process, even though it was bubble wrapped and inside an actual box, it's so heavy the spine broke. Like it's at a 45-degree angle. However, my previously librarian wife said there's a way to fix that, so I will be fixing that post haste. The final book ended up with over 240 games for about $16, which at the time would have been an amazing deal. This more than likely was the last big PlayStation book for them, because in doing the research to see if I had the complete set, the next volume after this one was PlayStation 2 strictly. So this was more or less the end of the line. Now, to give you an idea of just how insane this collection is, you have to understand... Ooh, I'm losing them all. Because they weigh a ton. This is literally only 5 books. Look at how thick this is on the library. Like, isn't that ridiculous? As far as tracking them down, I think I averaged like between... The one was $5 just because the cover was kind of mushed up. I ended up photoshopping, cleaning it up for the website. But they were about $5 to $15 each plus shipping. They're a really fun read. If you're not looking for a complete set, you can literally just grab the 2001 edition and get the best of it, especially with the nice paper and you can see all the codes and everything. The main point here is that whatever you're doing and you're collecting, always give yourself an escape route. If hunting down something or going after something is not working out, don't get frustrated, don't lose hope, don't overpay for something that's not worth that amount of money. Basically just find something else to work on, and when you're happy, go back to what you're normally doing. I'll probably start disc variant hunting again probably in a week or so. It's all good. That does it for this episode, guys. We are heading really, really quickly to 150. I need to get off my duff and start recording all the clips for that because I want to make it a little bit different, if you will. That said, play games, wear masks, get vaccinated when you can. We are almost eventually going to be out of this crazy quarantine. It's all good. Take care, guys. Have a great one.